Hello, happy Thursday. I am Allegra of Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, and I am so happy to be here with you today talking about how planning makes everything easier. If you joined me before, then you know that I have written 4 workbooks along with my collaborator, Natasha Corrigan. And all of these workbooks are designed to help you prioritize yourself and your goals by harnessing the power of planning. They all do slightly different things. If you're thinking to yourself, "I don't have a single moment to spend on anything else," well, then I would recommend checking out this book because this is our instant gratification book, 3, 2, 1, done. This is all about teaching you a framework for how to accomplish all the things that you have to do so that you never look at your list and think to yourself, "I don't know where to start," or "I don't know what to do next," or "I don't know when to do something." This will answer all those questions for you, and in doing so, it will gain you back all some of that time and energy that you are spending spinning your wheels. And then if the next thing you're thinking to yourself is, I don't feel taken care of. I don't have the mental bandwidth to spend on thinking about bigger picture things, then I would recommend our book, Rock Your Morning, which is all about creating a morning ritual in order to ensure that your needs are being met and that an expression, pour from a full cup. So to ensure that your cup is full so that you have bandwidth to give to your work or your friends or your family or your creative interests. Basic needs have to be met. If you've never heard, there's actually this psychological, philosophical framework called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs is shaped like a pyramid. And the whole idea about Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that at the bottom are kind of our basic survival needs, like say food and then shelter. And if you don't have your food covered, it's all consuming. That's the only thing you're thinking about. And if you don't have shelter, then that's the only thing you're thinking about. And as you move up this pyramid, you kind of are able to free up bandwidth because these more basic needs are being taken care of. And then at the top are kind of like your creative and your self realization, your ability to figure out what it is that you want to do and your legacy, those types of things you can only get to once your most basic needs are being met. And that's where having a morning ritual really, really helps because it helps to make sure that those basic needs are being met. By the way, a morning ritual, this also addresses having an evening ritual. So, anyway, so those are the things that I talk about. And today I'm going to be talking about life design. It's a term I've used. Maybe you've heard me use it and you know exactly what it means. And maybe you're like, I'm not exactly sure what that means. Well, I'm going to talk about what it means, why it's valuable. And I'm also going to talk about one of my favorite tools for ensuring that I am living a life by design, which is habit tracking. But before I get into that, I want to pull a card from my deck of cards that I keep here on my desk. Oh, this is a lovely card. Friendship is one mind in two bodies. That's Mencius. I'm not familiar with how to pronounce that name. Friendship is one mind in two bodies. Well, I don't have a lot to say about that because that's just kind of like a nice thing to think about. I do think that there's something about surrounding yourself with people who maybe share your vision or share your values. Absolutely. I know that I have close friends. Natasha is one of them who, when I spend time with them, it's just like I gain energy from it and I feel fueled up to go out into the world and do whatever it is that I need to do. Absolutely. And there's just a synergy that's there. Hopefully you have good friends in your life. You don't need a lot of them. In fact, I would say one good friend might be all that you really need. I once heard something that humans are only capable of maintaining a handful of really close relationships. And I don't know if there's an exact number, but you don't need that many friends to feel like I'm understood. Someone gets me. So, but find those people because they are very valuable in your life. Okay, so let's jump right into life design. What is life design? If you're joining me live right now, feel free to chat. And even if you're looking at the recording of this, you can always comment. I will see those comments and I'd be happy to answer them at a later date. Take a sip of water. I feel like my throat has not recovered from going to the desert last week. I was camping in the desert and my throat has just felt permanently dry since coming back. So, yes, I might be drinking a lot of water during this podcast. So, life design is the process of ensuring that you are living in a way that you want on purpose rather than living by default. And it's interesting because I had planned on talking about this topic in a slightly different way until this morning. I have a habit of journaling every morning. I have this journal that has prompts in it, writing prompts. And I like to answer one prompt. And sometimes the prompts only leave enough space to write one paragraph. And sometimes the prompts leave enough space to write for a whole page. But I don't do it in order of question. I literally just flip through the book. I stop at a place that feels right. And then I start writing. And I love this practice. It's interesting because some people really like to free write. I actually really like to answer questions because I find that when I'm answering a question, it makes me remember things that had my memory not been jogged, I wouldn't have thought about. And it clarifies for me thoughts that maybe I've had, but I've never thought about in a structured way. So I find prompts really helpful. But anyway, so this morning was my early morning sunrise hike with some of my friends. And I didn't have time to do the journaling, but I got to the hiking place 10 minutes earlier than expected because I was supposed to pick someone up and that person at the last minute wasn't able to join us. So I got there early. And so instead, I decided to look at this post on LinkedIn. There is this person who I follow. His handle is at Milani Creative, MILANICREATIVE, at Milani Creative. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name, but I'm going to say his name is Pejman Milani. And Pejman makes these, I don't want to call them infographics because it's not really information that he's capturing, but he makes these graphics that explain things that maybe can be a little hard to understand in words, but the images kind of capture the idea. And so he had this graphic today, which had this is burnout, and the image is of a heart with a flame. So it's kind of like the heart is a candle, and the flame is burning this heart candle out to the point where it's burnt out. But then under that, he says, this is also burnout. And it shows the same heart candle, but now it's under a glass dome. And the heart is still present throughout the image. There's three images. There's one of the heart burning. And then in the next one, the flame is a little bit lower. And then in the next one, the flame is about to go out. And the candle is still intact, but the flame itself has gone out. And so what he was saying is these are two different types of burnout. What do you think about that? Have you experienced either of these types of burnout? And the first type of burnout is the type of burnout that I talk about all the time on Harness the Power of Planning, because this is the burnout where you are not ensuring that you are taken care of. And so you are pouring from an empty cup, if you will. And this is, whenever you have put yourself last and you end up either feeling sick or feeling taken advantage of or taken for granted, that is the first kind of burnt out. And the way to avoid that kind of burnout, in my opinion, is very straightforward. It means you have to prioritize your well-being because, again, going back to what I was talking about in the beginning, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if your basic needs aren't being met, you can't be any good to anybody. If you're tired, if you are sick, if you are undernourished, you can't do anything. And so that kind of burnout, in my opinion, it's easy to overcome in that you have to take these steps to take care of yourself. And bottom line starts with the very first thing. And I don't like to quote unquote should on people. I don't like to say you should do these things. However, my background is in anthropology. And the reality is although our world has changed a lot in the last 100 years, our programming as human animals has not. We still need a certain amount of sleep. There's just no getting around that. We still need a certain amount of water. No getting around that either. We still need food, and if the food doesn't have certain nutrients, then we're not gonna feel good. Again, no getting around those things. So, the first thing that we have to do is ensure that we are getting enough sleep and quality sleep. There's kind of this misunderstanding that the only thing that matters is how many hours of sleep you get, and definitely hours are important. However, they also need to be high quality hours. If you fall asleep at 1 in the morning and wake up at 7, you're gonna feel very different than if you fall asleep at 9 and wake up at 3. You just are. Those are different quality hours of sleep. Different things are happening to your brain during that time. I can do the 9 to 3 thing and wake up and go about my day. The 1 to 7 thing, I wake up groggy because it wasn't quality sleep. So, we need to have quality sleep. You need to eat quality food. Like, I don't make this green smoothie because it's delicious. I make it because I know I need it and I feel light and energized afterwards. And I like the long-term benefits of eating this way. So, quality food, those are things we have to do, and then movement. Movement is so important. My hiking with my friend, yes, it's fun to hike with my friend and to see the sunrise, but the real reason she and I do it is so that when we're 80, we can still walk unassisted. I mean, we talk about that all the time, about how the things we're doing right now in our 50s, we're doing them so that when we're in our 80s, we have a lot more mobility and independence. So, the first kind of being burnt out is you need a self-care ritual, and I talk about that in Rock Your Morning, and the first 2 parts of self-care should be having a morning ritual in order to set yourself up for success for the day and to just kind of get a whole bunch of things out of the way, hydration, hopefully some movement, some healthy eating. There's some other things in there too, but after those, it gets more personal. You get to decide more about what you wanna do. Do you wanna journal? Do you wanna meditate? Do you maybe wanna have a conversation with someone to kind of pick you up? Do you wanna read something fun or maybe do a writing prompt like I do? It's up to you. One thing that I do in my morning ritual is I always clear my dish rack. And the reason why is because I love having that moment of, "Oh my gosh, my kitchen looks so clean because everything is put away." I just like that aha, like, "Ah," moment. And so that's why I do that. So it's very personal. And then I would recommend that you have an evening ritual because the evening ritual is what sets you up for that quality sleep and is what sets you up to have a good day the next day. So, those are the 2 places where, in order to avoid the first type of burnout, you need to focus on having a morning ritual and an evening ritual. The second type of burnout, the burnout where the heart is always fully intact, but it's the flame itself that goes out. When I saw this drawing on LinkedIn, I commented that I wouldn't call that burnout because I feel like it's a very different thing than the physical exhaustion that comes with not having self-care rituals. I feel like when your flame goes out, I wanna call that feeling extinguished, just to separate it from burnout as is commonly known. This feeling of being extinguished, I feel like that comes from not living life by design. So this is where this idea of life design comes in, right? So imagine, I think it was, I don't remember if it was Aristotle or Plato, Aristotle or Plato. Aristotle or Plato. I don't remember if it was Aristotle or Plato who said, or maybe it was Socrates, one of those three who said the unexamined life is not worth living. I think that's a good, quick way to think about life design. Life design is about thinking to yourself, what is it that I want to do with this one precious life I have, to paraphrase Brene Brown. And if that's what I want to do, how am I going to get there? And what daily activities do I need to do in order to move me on that path towards living the life that I want to live? That's what life design is. The extinguished heart, the flame that's extinguished, that feeling is of not feeling like you are living on purpose. Feeling like I'm just here, I'm just existing, but I'm not actually thriving. I feel like that's where that type of burnout comes from. That feeling of what's the point? Maybe you don't have feel like you don't have any kind of, passion driving your life, passion for what you're doing, passion for the people you're spending time with, passion for the activities. You know, when I was in my 20s, I went to one fraternity party and I didn't find it interesting. And so I never went again, even though I had many friends who went regularly every weekend, and they would try to get me to go along. And they'd say, "Come on, like this is what we're supposed to do." And I just remember having this feeling like that's not for me. You know, that's living a life by design. That was just not my thing. I felt extinguished by that experience. Going to those parties did not light my fire. I would rather do this other thing. And I think the thing is though, it's so easy to just kind of be carried along by the momentum of the stage of life you're in, right? So in your 20s, there's this sort of expectation that you spend your life going out, going to I can count the number of time I went out to bars probably on my two hands. Not maybe not one hand, but on two hands because it just wasn't my thing. So the whole point of life design is for you to be really clear on how it is that you want to spend your life. And the only way you can do that is, again, to go back to Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. I'm going to cover all my bases here. Go back to them and examine your life. You have to figure out what it is that you want to do. There are lots of resources out there on life design. And honestly, I have one as well, my Harness the Power of Planning, the course, the 6-session course. And what I would say to you is that, there's nothing really new out there. These are ideas that have been around since the time of Aristotle and Plato and Socrates. However, what is different is, do you click with the person that is talking about it? So find someone, find a book, find a course, find a podcast that you click with, and then go through the exercises that you need to go through. There are books about life design. I don't have a book about it, but I have a course, the Harness the Power of Planning course, which you can find on my website, BYW Dreams. I'll put up the QR code too. Find what it is that speaks to you and then do the work that you have to do in order to get there. Sorry, I don't have the QR code. It's tinyurl.com/HPOP on demand. Do the work that you have to do to get there. Because look, here's the thing. It is work. It does require work. My friend and I, when we were hiking today, we were talking about the fact that there are many things that we wanted to experience in this life, and they all require work. And I don't know where this idea of a life of leisure, I guess maybe it came in with the big landowners in Britain. I don't know. But we in Western culture, there's almost this belief that the best life is a life where you don't do any work. And I can tell you that I personally do my and all of my family contributes. We do our own housekeeping. We do our own gardening. We do our own maintenance around the house as much as we're able to, partially because we want to maintain the mobility. My grandmother lived on her own until she was 96, and I fully credit her mobility to the fact that she was still cleaning her house on her own, and so that was forcing her to, bend down and stand up and get her circulation going, because when my grandma's memory got bad enough that she had to move in with my mom, she stopped doing those things. And within 6 months, my grandmother lost the ability to walk. And it's just been a constant downhill decline since then, because there's an expression that I've heard that death starts in your feet, because circulation is so important to keeping everything else moving. So, yes, the examined life requires work. But the benefit of living a life that lights you up, that lights your flame up, to go back to this metaphor of this drawing that I saw on LinkedIn, it's so worth it, because it's about being excited to get out of bed. When I responded to the post on LinkedIn, I'll just read part of part of what I wrote. I wrote, the second type of burnout, I don't think I'd call it burnout. I'd call it extinguishing, just to differentiate between the two. In my opinion, extinguishing comes from not living in a way that's aligned with your personal values, which I find many people have not identified, let alone set their sail to. When you live a life by accident rather than by design, of course, your heart's not on fire. You're unfulfilled. Because what are the odds of falling into your ideal life? I'm guessing pretty low. And the author wrote back that, I love the idea of living life by design. The default life can take us in directions we definitely don't ever intend on heading. Yes, that's so important. And I wrote back, absolutely, because can you imagine getting into a sailboat without a compass or a course, and maybe without even a destination? And I put in parentheses, gasp, right? Because that's what living on accident is. It's getting into the sailboat of your life. And if you don't have a destination and you don't have a course planned out for how to get to that destination, and you don't have a compass to keep you on track, because, hey, let's face it, there's lots of distractions. You're going to get blown off course. You need to find your way back to course. If you don't have a destination, a course, and a compass, well, then how would you ever expect to end up in a place that you actually wanted? It would be almost impossible. So that's what life design is, and that's why it's important. Okay, so part 2 of this podcast dovetails with life design. But part 2, I just want to talk a little bit about habit tracking, because habit tracking is one of the best ways to keep you on course. Okay? Habit tracking is not the destination, and it's not the course itself, but habit tracking is kind of like a compass, where it keeps bringing you back to being on course. And it's a very powerful tool, and it's definitely one of the tools that I feel like has helped me the most. So what is habit tracking? Habit tracking is tracking the activity that you want to do in order to help you establish a habit that helps you live your dreams. So let's zoom out. And again, going back to this metaphor of destination and course and compass, let's say you have a goal of writing a book. It's It's a very common goal. A lot of people want to write a book. So you have a goal of writing your book. Well, let's say that book is your destination. That's your goal. Now, how do you get to writing a book? Well, there's lots of steps, right? You have to write the book itself. You have to find an editor or an agent or a publishing house. You have to review the book, find a cover designer, find someone to market it. Then you have to publish it. And then maybe your goal is not even done yet because maybe your goal is to make enough money so that you're living off of the earnings of the book. Okay, well, then the course is much longer because now you have to market the book. And okay, so all those steps that you have to do to arrive at your destination, though, that's the course. Now, before you can do any of those things that we just discussed, you have to write the book itself. And writing a book like this book is around 70 pages. I would say writing a book like this takes 3 to 6 months of regular writing. And by regular, I mean almost daily. So 4 to 5 days a week of writing. Okay, now you have something that you can actually cling onto and measure. You're going to write 4 to 5 days a week. And let's say you're going to set as a goal for yourself, I don't know, 1,000 words a day during these 4 to 5 days. It could be less than that, whatever. I'm just picking a nice round number. 1,000 words a day, 4 to 5 days a week. This is where the habit tracker comes in. This is where it's a compass for you to say, hey, how am I doing? Am I on the right course? Am I doing what I say I need to be doing? A habit tracker can be as simple as taking a calendar and marking off each day that you did the thing you said you were going to do. Jerry Seinfeld has famously said that that's what he does for his joke writing. He writes a joke every day because he just loves seeing the string of, I think he puts a red X when he's completed writing the joke. And he doesn't want to break that chain of red X's. A habit tracker can also look like this. My planner has one built into it on its weekly pages. If you can see it there, that is, they call it a, oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. They call it a positive habit maker. But you see, it's the same thing. It just has space for you to write down the thing that you want to do. In this case, they've already pre-filled gratitude, meditate, and exercise. And it has little squares for the days of the week. And then you mark off those squares however you want to. Maybe you like to do a check mark, and maybe you want to color in the square. I personally like to use hearts for my habit trackers. You could also use, physical objects like stickers. I find these holographic star stickers. I'm not a sticker person, but these holographic star stickers motivate me a lot. You can see, I literally buy them in bulk. Michaels, I get them from Michaels. They sell them in bulk, like packs of, I think it's like 13 or 15. So I buy thousands of stickers at once because it's pretty much the only sticker I use. I say pretty much because I do have a sticker. I have this other sticker. Since we're talking about stickers, it's a disco ball sticker. I like to use this when I plan an event that I'm throwing because it's just a fun way to celebrate the fact that I pulled off this event. Anyway, so that's the benefit of a habit tracker. It's a physical way to take note of the progress that you make. And again, as I said, it could be a calendar, it could be a little thing here in your calendar. I've actually created my own habit tracker for you all. And this is a habit tracker that you can use to track activities over the course of a month. So I'm just going to drop this into the QR code. It is the URL is subscribepage.com/habit tracker. That's SUBSCRIBE page.com. So all one word, subscribepage.com/habit tracker, all one word, HABITTRACKER. Go to that URL, go to that website, and that is where you can sign up to get this monthly habit tracker template that I have. And then you can just decide what habit it is what habits you want to track. There's room for, I think, about 10 different habits that you can track here. Weekly things that you want to do on a weekly basis. So, like the writing 4 to 5 times a week. I also have space there for things that you want to do on a monthly basis. Like, for instance, my family has a goal of volunteering once a month. So, that's where we would track that as well. So check it out, because I really do believe that having a habit of tracking your activity is one of the best ways to ensure that you're living a life by design, because it keeps you focused on what's important. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are ready to take your planning to the next level, check out my on-demand course, Harness the Power of Planning, at tinyurl.com/HPOP on demand. And please be sure to subscribe and rate the podcast wherever you are listening. It costs you nothing to do, and it really helps me out as a content creator. And remember that planning makes everything easier.